So next is inter-rater reliability. So now we have already discussed three types of reliability. Okay, three methods on how can we establish or how can we estimate reliability of a measure. So for inter-rater reliability is different than the other three. Okay, for internal consistency, for test, retest, and alternate form, all these three types of reliability, we collect data from participants. Okay, we collect data from respondents. But for inter-rater reliability, we collect data from raters. So these raters could be okay, judges, it could be lecturers, could be subject matter experts in certain field. Okay, the idea of inter-rater reliability, we want to know whether our items is reliable or not. We look at the consistency, the agreement among the experts, whether the items supposed to be answered in this way or not. Okay, so for inter-scorer reliability, D refers to the degree of agreement or consistency between two or more experts, between two or more subject matter experts with regards to the scale, to the test that we want to establish its reliability. So unlike test-retest reliability or alternate form reliability, where they measure coefficients of stability and coefficients of equivalence, but coefficient for inter-scorer or inter-rater reliability, we try to establish coefficients of inter-scorer reliability or inter-rater reliability. So what is this coefficient of inter-scorer reliability? This refers to the correlations between the raters. Okay, correlations between the experts. Okay, how they judge, how they rate the items. Okay, consistency among the raters. Okay, so here, why we have these options or these methods to establish reliability or to estimate reliability of a test. Okay, why? Because these is the types of reliability which are often used when coding non-verbal behavior. Okay, non-verbal behavior. So if you recall back, psychological tests do not only depend on self-reports. Okay, although that is the most commonly used methods where we ask our respondent, we ask our participants, we ask our clients to answer the test. But sometimes it requires us to hire enumerators or hire other researchers to observe the behavior of our target participant. Okay, for example, I've seen in many hospitals that provide play therapy, for example, so they have observers, okay, to look at the behavior of the children who suffer from certain condition. So they have multiple observers, okay, they have multiple judges. So how can we know that the behavior targets of the children is the one that we are focusing, okay, free from error of individual judgment, free from error of individual biases. So in this case, we can use inter-rater reliability methods to estimate the reliability of our psychological tools. Okay, in this case, behavioral checklist. So by using inter-rater reliability, it gives us an advantage in terms of guards against biases or idiosyncrasies, or in this case, individual preference, individual uniqueness in scoring. Okay, you have learned in the source of error whereby they are response bias in that sense. But in this case, if we have multiple raters and use to establish inter-scorer reliability coefficients, then we will be able to minimize this issue. So by using these types of reliability estimates, it is suitable for tests that assess multiple constructs. Okay, examples that I given to you just now. Okay, there is a test where have multiple response formats. We have multiple types of response, open-ended, closed-ended, and etc. So the other test will not be able to establish that unless you can develop alternate forms to it. Otherwise, you are not able to establish other three types of reliability: internal consistency, test, retest, or alternate forms. So you can use inter-rater reliability estimate. Beside that, like I mentioned, So inter-rater reliability allow us to estimate reliability for mixed response format for a test that have multiple methods that they use to acquire the data. Okay, as well as responses that have subjective evaluation of the answer, open-ended, for example, ranking or right or wrong answer. Okay, so these are the advantages of using inter-rater reliability. Okay, so now we have covered all four types of reliability estimates: internal consistency reliability, test-retest reliability, alternate form or parallel forms reliability, and just now inter-rater reliability. So these tables provide us the comparison between the four. Okay, you have test, retest, parallel forms, inter-rater, and internal consistency reliability. So what is test, retest? Measure of stability. What is parallel forms? Measure of equivalence. What is inter-rater? Measure of agreements. What is internal consistency? Measure of how consistently each item measure the same underlying construct. Okay, the homogeneity aspect. So how do we do test reliability? So we administer the same form of the test to to the same group of people at two different times. Okay, I repeat, we administer the same test, okay, the same form at two different times, okay, to the same group of people. Okay, so we administer it twice. For parallel forms, we administer or we collect data using two different forms to the same group of people. Okay, for inter-rater, we have two or more raters to rate the behavior and then determine the amount of agreement between the raters. Okay, so we ask more than two raters. Okay, the minimum is two raters to rate, okay, the items, and we look at the agreement between the raters. And lastly, internal consistency. So we collect data from the same group of people only once using only one forms, and then we correlate performance of each item or inter-item correlations, and we calculate the Cronbach alpha or split half reliability to establish the internal consistency reliability of the test. Okay, so what the reliability coefficients looks like? Okay, these are the examples or the what we call symbols that we use. R refers to the correlation, test 1 and test 2 for retest, test, retest. R form 1 and form 2 for parallel forms or alternate forms. And then percentage of agreements for inter-rater, agreements between the raters. And then Cronbach alpha, Kuder-Richardson test. Okay, the alpha symbol as well as the figures. Okay, so these are the summary of the reliability estimates that we can explore to provide the evidence of reliability for our scale. Please remember that for each item, there are suitability, okay, there are conditions that we want to use, okay, that are methods of how can we establish it. Okay, there are important considerations when we want to establish reliability of a test. Okay, nature of test and reliability estimates. So the nature of the test itself is closely related to the purpose and use of reliability coefficients. What nature of the test refers to here? Type of test. Okay, you are measuring what? You are measuring attitudinal construct. Okay, you are measuring personality construct. You are measuring intelligence. Okay, you are measuring clinical aspect of the test. So all of these have its own nature. Example, if you want to develop a test which measure clinical aspect, depression, for example. So depression is not specific traits, it's more of states. Okay, so in this case, it is suitable for us to use test reliability. You may not, because of why? You might have high level of stress today, but after 6 weeks, your stress already reduced. You no longer feel stressed, for example. So it's retest is not suitable. So what is more suitable in that sense? If you ask people with certain condition, does their answers are reliable or not? So in this case, you may not be able to ask the answers from the respondents. So what alternative that you have? So you may need to consider raters or judges or SME, subject matter experts, to give you the ratings, and then you calculate inter-rater reliability. Okay, so here, referring back to that, the nature of the test may also involve in the process of deciding what types of reliability estimate that we should use. Okay, bear in mind that most of us who are currently studying, reading journal articles, okay, they will always report internal consistency reliability. Okay, that is the most common one. The second most common test that reliability estimate that people report is test reliability. Okay, some considerations that we need to pay attention on to decide what type of reliability estimate that we can use. First one is the test. Okay, whether the test is homogeneous or heterogeneous in nature, whether it's measure one construct or measure many constructs in this case. Second, the characteristics, the ability or the trait that being measured is presumed to be dynamic or static. Okay, dynamic here means that it fluctuates. Okay, it changes very frequently or in a very short period of time, or it's very stable over time. Okay, it's static. Third, we need to also consider the range of the test cost. Okay, is it restricted or inflicted? Okay, whether it depends on the answer formats. Okay, they are Likert scales or they give us numbers which are continuous. Okay, so that also need to be considered. The test is speed test or power test. Okay, if you require your respondents to answer the test within a very specific time, so it may be a speed test. Or power test, you require your respondents to solve a problem, okay, to answer the test. So you have to consider that, okay, whether speed test is it good for us to use internal consistency or not. Or maybe it's better to have alternate form for speed test, for power test, because it asks respondents to solve a problem. So we may need to depend on judges, raters, or subject matter experts to give us estimations of reliability. Okay, and the last one, we also need to consider whether the test is a criterion reference or norm-reference test. Okay, in this case, the reliability, whether, okay, if it's a norm reference test, so we can compare the score of our test to the norms, okay, the trends of answers of the population. But sometimes it depends on criterion. And sometimes if the criterion is true score, pass and fails, then whether it's suitable for us to use internal consistency or not. Most of the time, maybe not, because they are true, right and wrong answer. So in this case, we might need to use alternate forms of iterator reliability. So these are the consideration of psychologists need to pay attention when they want to estimate the reliability of a particular test. Okay, so we have come to the end of discussion of this topic, reliability. So a little bit refreshments of what we have learned under these topics. So we have discussed the concepts of reliability, especially we focusing on the measurement error. Okay, in there we also discuss what is meant by reliability. Okay, the simple understanding of reliability is the consistency of the answers. But if you look deeper, reliability refers to the ability to minimize error in the measurement. Okay, the less error, the more reliable the test will be. So because of that, we also discuss what it means by measurement error, and we discuss different types or sources of error variance during the psychological test administration. And then the second part in this video, so we discuss four types of methods that we can use to estimate reliability of the test. So we discuss two types of internal consistency reliability, which is split half and Cronbach alpha. And we discuss on test-retest reliability, which gave us the indications of coefficient of stability. And we also discuss on the coefficient of uh, equivalence for parallel forms or alternate form reliability. And lastly, we discuss on the coefficients of agreement of iterator or interscorer reliability. So these are everything that you need to understand for understanding reliability in psychological assessment.